You should be in the helicopter looking, well, you know, Hanoi Avenue is looking really tight
so my
today.
staff, everyone's saying to me,
like this.
you got to air this. And I'm like, oh.
But I love how you have Fox News alert, Hannity on a moped.
It's a scooter. It's not. That's what they call them, scooters.
About that, I just have such a great line to tease you with. Yeah, you were a little too close for comfort.
You got to
have
a sense of humor to do this.
All right, Hannity, great show. Stay safe.
I'm glad it cracked you up.
It did. I lost my ear. I'm going to have to take my other one off. Heck with that. Who needs those? All right, Hannity, thanks so much. I'm sorry. I am going to dine out on that for a long time. I'm Laura Ingraham. This is the Ingraham Angle from Washington tonight. How are the grievances pursued by Spike Lee, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and Jussie Smollett related? My angle tackles all of that in just moments. Plus, a California school district told a student she couldn't wear Make America Great Again apparel. And now she's fighting back. High schooler Maddie Muller is here exclusively to tell us how and why. Also tonight, is Adam Schiff moving the goalposts on the Mueller conclusions? House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy is here with reaction. And Raymond Arroyo just got back from L.A. He's going to tell us why the Oscars, well, they had a little bump in the road last night. A little up from the year before, but a little bump in the road. And why the backlash over the Best Picture winner could have severe cultural implications? No. Well, be sure to stick around for that. But first, Spike Lee and the politics of me. That's the focus of tonight's angle. Okay, what does Spike Lee, AOC, Jussie Smollett, and ill-mannered teens tell us about modern-day liberalism? Answer, a heck of a lot. Now let's start with Spike Lee. The iconic director is worth millions. I mean, he's made millions. He's done really well. Over 30 years, though, he was nominated no fewer than 5 times for an Academy Award. But until last night, he had never won an Oscar. But he took home the award for adapting the screenplay for his movie Black Klansman. But rather than showing humility and gratitude, he spiked the moment with a tiresome political diatribe.
The 2020 presidential election is around the corner. Let's all mobilize. Let's all be on the right side of history. Make the moral choice between love versus hate. Let's do the right thing. You know I had to get that in there.
Number one, lame that after all these years he couldn't memorize his lines. Number two, lame that he couldn't accept the honor without gratuitous cursing, which you couldn't even hear because the Oscars had to bleep him. Number three, disagreeing with your political vision, Spike, doesn't make you immoral or a bad person. Now, like I've said before, liberals are angry sometimes, even when they should be happy. And most are off the charts intolerant and judgmental of people who don't think like they do. And Lee, just like in his latest film, suffers from kind of a deficit of both subtlety and grace. Perhaps not surprisingly, the president couldn't resist lobbing a post-Oscars response, tweeting, "Be nice if Spike Lee could read his notes, or better yet, not have to use notes at all when doing his racist hit on your president, who's done more for African Americans, criminal justice reform, lowest unemployment in years, in history, tax cuts, etc., than almost any other prez." Well, beyond politics, which shouldn't have been a part of Hollywood's big night anyway, Spike Lee's performance lacks some grace. I think to regular people, he just came across as kind of bratty, rude, self-absorbed, and egotist, masquerading, though, as a brilliant social justice warrior. The old Spike Lee, got to go back like 30, 35 years, was at least kind of cutting edge. And I have a question. Should we judge him for some of his old movie lines? Like this one when describing a girl he had relations with?
What about Nola Darling? What do you want to know? I thought she was a freak. You know, freaky deaky. You asked why I continue to see her? To look like a retard? I'm not crazy.
Well, but this craziness goes way beyond Spike Lee. It's the same arrogant, self-important thinking that propelled Empire star Jussie Smollett into believing he could stage an anti-MAGA hoax and then conclude that he'd emerge as a hero. Making a scene and casting yourself as the wounded martyr is what these elites do best. You see, when you're on the right side of history, it's your duty to start a national conversation and inject yourself into the middle of it. Facts? They're irrelevant, kind of passé. As the famed political philosopher Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez once observed,
there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely, factually, and semantically correct than about being morally right.
Well, like most of today's social justice warriors, AOC truly believes she is always morally right. And that notion entitles her to be one of the leaders of not the Me Too movement, but the Me, Me, Me movement. She's been on the job for exactly 2 months, and you would swear her Green New Deal is a second Declaration of Independence.
I just introduced Green New Deal 2 weeks ago, and it's creating all of this conversation. Why? Because no one else has even tried. So people are like, oh, it's unrealistic. Oh, it's vague. Oh, it doesn't address this little minute thing. And I'm like, you try. You do it.
Right.
Because you're not. Because you're not. So until you do it, I'm the boss.
That's
How about
right.
that?
I know you didn't. I mean, she's like 29 years old, and she's like the boss of Congress. And it's like, totally, it must be nice. But what she lacks in experience, she's excited. It's kind of good she's in there in the mix. She lacks kind of perspective, too, but she makes up for all of it in ego and confidence. Got to give her that. But her demands, they seem familiar. Mentality is the byproduct of the everyone gets a trophy era in which she was raised, where coddled kids grow up to be entitled adults. Who needs manners and decorum when you've just been rewarded for speaking your truth? You always have to hit your chest when you say it. Speaking your truth whenever and wherever you want. When adults indulge youngsters, we get shallow thinkers. And by the way, this entire notion of speaking your truth is goofy because it presupposes that there really is no objective truth. Your truth isn't necessarily the truth, and it's probably just your opinion. And you're entitled to have it, but until you've lived, fallen, and failed, it's probably fairly uninformed, even if it's entertaining and highly energetic. You're entitled to speak all you'd like. Of course, First Amendment, everybody has entitled an opinion, but no one is obligated to listen to you. And whether you're an overrated director, a minor TV actor, or Vogue's congressional it girl, none of it matters. And that goes, by the way, for rude middle school and high school students who are coached to get in the face of adults on Capitol Hill and just like talk to them like they're their contemporaries, their Instagram buddies. What am I talking about? Well, on Friday, Senator Dianne Feinstein was confronted by a group of AOC mini-me's lobbying for the Green New Deal, Natch, in her office. Check out this exchange.
Some scientists have said that we have 12 years to turn this around.
Well, it's not going to get turned around in 10 years. What we can do,
Senator, if this doesn't get turned around in 10 years, you're looking at the faces of the people who are going to be living with these consequences.
The government is supposed to be for the people and by the people.
I've been doing this for 30 years. I know what I'm doing. You come in here and you say it has to be my way or the highway. I don't respond to that. I know what I'm doing. So, you know, maybe people should listen a little bit.
We're the people who voted you. You're supposed to listen to us. That's your,
How old are you?
job.
How old
I'm
are
16.
You?
I
Well,
can't
you didn't vote for me.
Well, this may have been Feinstein's finest hour. Well, she was forced to deal with immature militant activists that her party is churning out by the thousands. Activists who usually confront and then try to embarrass Republicans. Again, the blame isn't with the kids. They're students. It's with their parents. Or is that their teacher? Let's face it, if there was no cell phones recording every word, how many would even be there? So many people today, they crave attention. They want to have their moment. I understand. And Spike Lee and AOC and these activist tots should take note. Making a scene and posting it on social may feel good, but it's no substitute for accomplishment or hard work. Whether you're a liberal or a conservative or something in between, just try listening to the opposing view, then sharpening your arguments. No matter how much you virtue signal, harassing people isn't a talent. It's just lazy. And in the end, lazy is just boring, and it rarely wins. And that's the angle. All right, joining me now with reaction in Washington, David Arizad, and he's an expert in identity politics from the Heritage Foundation, and Democratic strategist Monique Presley, plus Leo Dunson, minister and activist who took part in President Trump's Black History Month celebration last week. David, I want to start with you. You spent a lot of time studying identity politics and think the left has, I'm so sick of the phrase weaponized, but they're using race relations in a very pointed way, to say the least.
And of the examples you listed, the one that I found most disturbing was the Jussie Smollett one. Because had he pulled off his hoax, the consequences would have been dramatic for America. Setting aside that 2 innocent people may have gone to jail, you very well could have had race riots.
Half of America. And immediately they're cast onto the ash heap of you're bad people because you like Trump or you're more conservative or you're not a liberal. And for the life of me, I don't get that. It's not entertaining. It's utterly predictable, and it's conformist. It's not. It's the opposite of nonconformist in Hollywood. A nonconformist would be someone who's like a conservative up there saying, "I call BS on all of you."
Right. I don't recall him mentioning President Trump's name.
Oh, come on. You're smart, Monique.
I don't recall him
you don't think he was talking about
conservatives or liberals.
Okay.
I do recall everybody who was in the place screaming and clapping and hooping. I was jumping up and down, screaming and clapping and hooping at home, so I'm giving him entertainment value. There are people
That's a representative audience?
Well, you know.
Really? Representative of whom?
I represent people like me, whatever that means. Yeah. He's had a 30-year career. He won an Oscar after those 30 years. He deserved it well before that. I think he gets to use his time whatever way he wants to use his time.
I'm not saying he can do whatever he wants. We have the right to criticize it.
Yes, and so then I have the right to defend. So what I'm saying in defense is I found his statements accurate and poignant, and I was a little surprised, Laura, I got to admit, when you were talking about him lacking subtlety and
there was that was the most predictable. I could have written that for him.
Subtlety and grace, and I think you also mentioned something about people who are coddled when they're youngsters showing up this way.
I wasn't talking about him. I talked about 3 other people in there.
You were talking about who? Donald J. Trump? The occupant of the White House?
Who are we talking about? Well, I was talking about a generation that believes that if someone disagrees with you, they're a bad person. I wouldn't say Spike Lee and I disagree on stuff. I wouldn't say he's a bad person. We disagree.
But
big deal.
Popular right now, isn't it? Because we,
how is that interesting?
I'm going to envelop it and say we as a country elected someone whom, if you do not agree with him, you're a bad person. There's no subtlety.
Who said that?
There's no grace. He says it.
He says I'm the president of all the people.
Boo you, bad, sad.
All right, Leo, you were just with him. Monique says that Donald Trump thinks you're a bad person if you don't agree with him. Now, you just were with him. It was oversubscribed, like 300-plus African-American leaders and activists around the country. A lot of people didn't see what happened, but a lot of people saw the Oscars. They had 29.6 million people watching that last night. And Monique is right. Everyone in that room, probably 90% Democrat, liberal Democrat, or the other ones are too afraid to say anything different. They all love it. Of course they love it. They're in Hollywood. What did you see about this president that might be a different take from what Monique just said?
Well, we know for a fact that Spike Lee was alluding to the president when he said love versus hate, because he said in 2020, we're going to make sure you go out and vote for love versus hate. But I like to say, if the Democrats represent 90% of black communities right now, we're in poverty, we're being shot, we're being poorly miseducated. Is that love or is that hate? I don't understand how under this president, he has dropped black unemployment to the lowest that it's ever been. Our poverty rate has been, under this president, it's lower than it's ever been. Still above the national average, but lower than it's ever been. I don't understand the illusion that Spike Lee and many of these other liberals continue to make when they say that the president is spewing hate or is spewing love. I see it from the other side. If a black conservative has stood in front of a room of all white people and did the exact same thing that Spike Lee did, they would have said that I was chucking and jiving and that I was cooning. But because he's part of the liberal elite, he's able to stand up there in the front of the entire world and get multiple claps and ask questions. Even afterwards, he asks questions in front of a smug room of people who are all rich and famous, and makes it seem like he understands black America or the plight of the people.
Let's go to what Stacey Abrams wrote. She's like writing that this is actually working for Democrats, and I think we should take this to heart. She wrote in Foreign Affairs, Americans must thoughtfully pursue an expanded identity-conscious politics New, vibrant, noisy voices represent the strongest tool to manage the growing pains of multicultural coexistence. By embracing identity in its prickly, uncomfortable contours, Americans will become more likely to grow as one.
The truth of the matter is the exact opposite.
Why?
By nature, we're tribal animals. We go with our own. It's not natural for human beings to get along with people who don't look like us, don't worship the same God.
What does that mean?
Meaning, we prefer to be with our own. We're distrustful of people who look different, who talk different, who worship differently. What we should emphasize is not identity, is unity, is civic friendship, is brotherhood, that we're all Americans. And you know what? The diversity part will take care of itself naturally. Don't emphasize the divisiveness. Emphasize unity.
What brings us together?
Americans.
I 100% agree with you, David.
Monique, your reaction to that? I mean, there is something about, people say Trump's dividing us. But gosh, it seems like there are a lot of people dividing America right now along gender, racial, what's your preference here? I'm just trying to get through the day, frankly. Whatever, I'm just trying to get through the day.
You and me both, and raise my kids while I do it. So I don't completely disagree. Here's what I think. Identity politics really can save us as much as people think it can divide us, because me recognizing that you are different than me and I identify with someone who looks like me is not the same thing as saying I hate what is different from me. So there doesn't have to be the divisiveness. We don't have to embrace that in order to embrace the fact that there's something good about me and the skin that I'm in.
I agree.
And I like it, right? I like the skin that you're in. So when we're talking about identity politics, I think the message can't be silos that don't talk to each other. It can be silos. You've got yours, I've got mine, but what do we have in common?
Well, I agree with you. I think there's actually something we can agree on. I know that's like no one wants to say that in cable news, but I actually think, Leo, there is something we can agree on. I can never understand what it's like to be an African-American woman. I can't understand. I can't put my shoes in someone else. I don't look down on people because of skin colors. I really don't. We might disagree on things. That's okay. What I don't like is when people say, because you're not that, you have privilege and you need to apologize. I'm like, what the heck? I didn't do anything. Like, that's what I think is getting in people's craw, getting in their craw. They don't like that aspect of it. The differences and coming together, I think that's all positive. Leo, close it out.
Right, and also with identity politics, right, you have, for example, Black Lives Matter, who will march when a black boy is shot by a white police officer, but who won't march when black kids are being shot every single day. Identity politics also goes into the feminist movement, where they will run for they'll march for gay marriage, they'll march for anything feminine, but they won't march for a masculine movement, right? They would be completely against that for sure, right? They will identity politics continue to divide us, and I don't think that is something that we should be doing. I think that we should all be Americans. We're American first. We should be talking about the policies that better affect us together as Americans living here in America.
The content of our character. It's great conversation.
Amen.
Thank you so much. And coming up, defending the first against radical people on the left, trying to alter the past and the present. Well, first, a World War I cross memorial under siege. I'll debate one of the people suing to take it down. Second, a teen challenging her school district after she is banned from wearing a MAGA hat. She'll be here exclusively in minutes to tell us how she's fighting back.
How does being a patriot and trying to show pride in your country, how is that inappropriate?
Banned her from wearing a MAGA hat at school. But first, this nearly 100-year-old memorial honoring veterans who died during World War I is under siege, and its fate is now before the Supreme Court of the United States. Some liberals want the memorial naturally torn down.
It gives the impression that no Jews are welcome in the city of Bladensburg. It presents Bladensburg as though it were a Christian enclave.
An appeals court in 2017 ruled the memorial unconstitutional, and on Wednesday, supporters of the cross have another chance to save it when the Supreme Court justices take up the case. Joining me now is Sarah Henry from the American Humanist Association, the group arguing for the removal of the memorial. Sarah, what would make your group happy, and what do you want to replace this memorial with?
So we certainly support the opinion of the Fourth Circuit judge in his earlier decision, which found that there are three great options here. The memorial could be reshaped, removed, or reassigned, and we'd be perfectly happy with any of those.
Who do you represent?
I'm a spokesperson for the American Humanist Association.
Who do they represent?
Our plaintiffs in this case are 3 local residents who are perturbed at the cross.
Perturbed by how? How does it affect their daily lives?
It's an obtrusive Christian memorial in an
been there for 100 years. Why is it obtrusive?
Because the time.
What happens to them physically? Like, they see that cross, and do they, like, what happens? They have physical, symptoms? I mean, emotional distress? I mean, what is it? So the cross is obtrusive. It affects their everyday lives. How? I'm asking you how. You keep saying that. Like, I'm not trying to be tough. I know this is, you go on TV all the time. I'm really trying to be. They drive by, and they think, oh, my God, the government is establishing a religion, and it's going to be compulsory church attendance, and I'm going to have to, like, bow down on my knees and pray to God. Do they think that? A massive Christian cross is a symbol of discrimination and exclusion. Okay, so that's what we're getting at. So I'm glad you said that. So the cross itself, so I have a cross. So if I took this out right now and, like, had this, would you want me to put that back in my blouse? Of course not. I want you to be free to express your religious. Okay, so but the people who are honoring these fallen heroes, they can't be free to express what they believe and was embodied at the time by those who lost their lives. This cross was rededicated in 1985 to honor all veterans of all wars, and it's simply silly to think that all veterans of all wars are Christian, and a cross only represents Christian veterans. So do you also believe that the crosses at national cemeteries should be removed? A cross on an individual gravestone, the way they're placed in Arlington National Cemetery, doesn't represent a government endorsement of Christianity. But, I mean, that could really affect somebody. I mean, if they drove by, like, if you drive by, was it GW Parkway? Yeah. GW Parkway, you see a lot of crosses. Sure. I mean, that could, like, cause an accident. I mean, you could drive right off the road if you saw those crosses. I mean, that could be personally really debilitating for someone, could it not? So why isn't the humanist getting involved in that? Those are crosses of individual religious expression. Doesn't matter. It's a symbol. You said no, but you just said the symbol discriminates. Those were your words about 60 seconds ago. The symbol discriminates. That's the national. That is the most prominent cemetery in the United States to honor the war dead. I'm saying the government of Bladensburg, Maryland is discriminatory in nature when they use a Christian cross to attempt to represent all veterans. It's simply impossible to do. So when you work for the Humanist Association, do you have to say that you don't believe in anything, or how did you grow up? Did you grow up with a faith, or what happened? I grew up in a non-religious household in an extremely religious community. My parents were always incredibly supportive of my exploring different religious faiths and traditions. So I'm just curious. I'm always curious about someone's faith journey. Of course. So were you raised in any faith, or you were just not raised in a faith? I was raised to explore and appreciate others' faiths, but my household did not have a religious faith growing up. Okay, so when you say other faiths, what have you explored that's interesting? Sure, I've attended a number of Christian services. I've attended a number of Jewish services. I've had lessons of faith explained to me by friends and been taught many tenets of faith. And I sincerely support people's attempts to reflect. But it's just the outward manifestation on anything that is city, town, or federally owned. Like if there was let's say Arlington Cemetery has a cross etched on a sign, but it's on the sign approaching Arlington. Let's just say, for argument's sake, that existed. Would the American Humanist Association think that was tantamount to an Establishment Clause violation? Our founders would have thought that that was an establishment of religion. Would they believe that? Well, I'd like to talk about the Establishment Clause issue that's actually at hand here, which is the 40-foot tall cross in Bladensburg, Maryland. It's how we get to, like, 50 years ago, if you would have told people that, people would be arguing over the cross, they'd be like, no, 20 years ago, probably wouldn't have thought. But now that's what we're arguing about. So we actually have to go from here to "In God We Trust" on the coins. Obviously, doing the Pledge of Allegiance, people don't want to stand for that. So when you say, well, the slippery slope argument's not, well, we've actually slipped down the slope. So I think that's why people are concerned, whether you're Christian or not anything, or Jewish or Muslim. It seems like the manifestation of public faith is what gets groups like yours, and it really affects you deeply. It's the government endorsement of that faith. Okay, and so you think this is actually the establishment of religion? It's actually establishing a religion under the First Amendment? I don't care what the Lemon versus Kurtzman test is. I could argue that all day. But do you think that's tantamount to the government establishing religion?
A government spending over $100,000 to maintain a specific religious symbol and no others is clearly a violation.
Okay, so you think it's a step. Okay, we appreciate it. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on. And now onto a high school student in California who's taking on her school after being told she can't wear a MAGA hat to class. Maddie Muller says she was just trying to show her pride in her country when the school claimed she had violated the dress code. The Clovis Unified School District is telling the Ingraham angle that Muller could not wear the hat, though, because it wasn't a school hat or a hat from a school club or activity. Our dress code is actually silent on political attire because we don't intend to position ourselves to be making subjective judgments about what is and isn't political. Well, now with me is Maddie Muller. Maddie, the school says the rules about hats are clear. I'm not a big one for hats indoors, period. I don't like hats indoors. I think if you're at a baseball game or you're in the sun, hats indoors, I don't care what hat it is. I'm not really a big fan of it. But they say this has nothing to do with stifling your political beliefs. Do you believe that?
I would have to say that I wholeheartedly disagree.
Okay, so what evidence do you have that the school is actually discriminating against your political beliefs?
Currently on campus, as of today, I checked today, I saw 4 Hillary Clinton t-shirts, 1 Obama shirt, a Bernie Sanders hat, and about 7 LGBTQ rainbow flag hats on campus today.
Were they in classrooms?
Yes.
Okay, well, that's pretty good evidence. Okay. So it looks like if that's accurate, and I don't have any reason not to believe it, if that's accurate, then people can just kind of wear what they want to wear in school. I mean, I see kids coming out of school, they're wearing short shorts and stuff like, whoa, my mother would have freaked out. But they're wearing lots of stuff, including hats, and I see a lot of political symbols on shirts. It seems like kids are encouraged to be kind of mini activists, which is... It's not how I grew up, but that's how kids are. But if you're a conservative activist, then you're kind of a hater. That's how the dominant culture sees you. Why did you want to kind of pick this fight, which is pretty brave to do at most probably public schools in the country?
Thank you. I chose to pick this particular battle because I ended up at the beginning of the first semester getting an internship with Devin Nunes and David Valadeo during their midterms. And that's when I really discovered my true passion for politics. And I realized that the school systems seem to be trapped under the government's thumb about what they're supposed to, you know, teach, what's acceptable to force down our throats in a sense. And I realized that it's not always the truth. So I chose that as a conservative, raised in a family that my family was made through adoption. So I was born into the pro-life army. And I just decided that I felt like someone needed to take a stand. Someone needed to stand up, not just for Clovis North, not just for Clovis Unified, but nationwide for the conservative and Christianity monitoring that's going on campuses.
Okay, so there's a federal judge actually said, or a judge, I'm not sure, a federal judge, said the following, we'll put it up on screen, about MAGA hats. Well, the hat is something that could invoke violence or invoke controversy. Then for the safety of the students, the school is within its legal rights. A former federal district court judge, Oliver Wagner, said that. So your hat could provoke people to violence. So I imagine that gets thrown on the list of reasons why this hat, and they claim it's not political, but this hat is a problem.
Yeah, actually that, until the judge said it, had never been brought to my attention.
Wow. Are you going to keep wearing the hat?
Yeah. I haven't been, just because I know that it's a big issue right now, but I did order a black one, and I intend to try and wear it on campus because black is one of our school colors. I'm going to try it.
Maybe you do an acronym. Today. Yeah, maybe just the MAGA. You can't say MAGA either. I don't know. Maybe you have a silhouette of Trump.
Yeah.
I don't know what you can have.
Today I went to. Yeah, sorry. Today I went in to school and I had I guarantee I'm the only student, but I had to get my Support the Blue sweatshirt approved. I have to get all of my sweatshirts and shirts approved through the disciplinary office before I can actually wear them.
You look pretty.
What can I say?
Yeah, you look pretty edgy. You look like you're in real trouble at school. So, all right. Well, it's very interesting. We'll be following. That's a nonconformist here on the Ingraham Angle. We really appreciate it. And coming up, why do Nancy Pelosi and Adam Schiff seem to be squirming in their leadership positions all of a sudden? House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, Instagram quote, "The Jussie I know could never even conceive of something so unconscious and ugly." Smollett has been written out of the last 2 episodes of Empire, and today a judge said he's allowed to travel out of state to meet with his lawyers while he's out on bond on these federal disorderly conduct charges. He's due back in court next month. Also tonight, Democrats in the House are forcing a vote tomorrow on a resolution that would stop the national emergency declared by President Trump to fund that border wall. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi tonight said, well, it's their solemn duty.
All members, as I say, have taken the oath of office. We would be delinquent in our duties if we did not resist, we did not fight back to overturn the President's declaration.
This comes after nearly 24 former Republican members of Congress, most I've never heard of, penned an open letter to GOP lawmakers urging them to terminate the national emergency. Joining me now, House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy. Congressman, your reaction to Nancy Pelosi tonight. They're going for that stop the national emergency declaration.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I read that letter, too, from those Republicans. I didn't know hardly
I looked at this list.
I had to look them up. And a lot of them
witness
were one
protection program. I think there's only a few that are under 75. God bless them. No matter how old you are, you're valuable. But other than John Danforth, I was like, who are these people?
You know what's interesting is, go back to 2005. When the federal government wasn't solving the border problem, there were 2 Democrat governors along the border. They called an emergency. Napolitano, who became DHS secretary, and Richardson. And you know what they said? Because the federal government wasn't acting the problem along the border, they needed to act. These are 2 prominent Democrats that worked on the border that understand, and it's worse today than it was then.
And by the way, Napolitano was part of another letter today that she signed with your old pal John Kerry and other national security experts. And they're mostly Obama people, and this whole thing is wrong. It's a wrong approach, wrong-headed, but also, just saying that the president's national security strategy here is
The president has the legal authority to do this. There is a crisis on the border. 60,000 people a month are being picked up illegally. Remember, we have the most liberal immigration policy in the world.
1.1 million green
every
cards a year, which most people want reduced or to stay the same.
But think for one moment. Take immigration out of it. How many people are dying from the drugs that come across? How many kids are being trafficked in human trafficking from them?
Oh, that's an exaggeration. They don't get trafficked. I mean, you hear that, and I'm thinking, where are all the social justice warriors? Were you at the Oscars? Admit it, yes or no?